Girl. Right. So I do not have Event Mobi open, so I cannot see it.
Looks like it's streaming.
Okay, yep. And it's 12:45. And oh, you know what? We needed to switch to the speaker view. So Chris, you might want to stop streaming for a second.
I actually do have it on speaker view.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's because I'm in here. All right. We'll give it just a few more seconds. You're live. Someone has let us know even. Okay, so I will go ahead and start. So welcome, I'm Jeannie Shear, and I would like to introduce you to Whitney Prestby. She's a natural resources educator with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension, and she's going to be telling us how you might use videos to tell your stories. She's going to have about 30 minutes to do her presentation, and then we'll be taking questions. So make sure you're putting your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat. You want to go into the Q&A, and then of course upvote questions that you are similar or you think are so good you just really want the answer to. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Whitney.
All right, thank you, Jeannie. And just want to double check that you're seeing the presentation correctly.
I see it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. As Jeannie mentioned, I am a natural resources educator with UW-Madison Division of Extension. I work as the outreach specialist for the Fox Demo Farms project here in the Lower Fox area. I'm based out of Green Bay. And I'm going to be talking about using videos to tell your story. So over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, we've been really building a video resource library for the Fox Demo Farms project, as well as the Door-Kewaunee group that I help out with as well. Obviously, 2020 threw a wrench into our outreach strategy, so we really ramped up our video content in the last year. So I just want to share some of the tips that I've learned over the course of the last few years. And this presentation, you know, like Jeannie said, feel free to put questions in the chat box if there's something that's really timely. Jeannie, feel free to pause me, kind of keep this as informal as possible. I'm going to be using a couple of videos to help kind of illustrate the key points that I want to make as we move through the presentation. So the first thing to do is that planning process and start asking yourself some of these questions to help you really build a quality video. So the first question is, why are you making the video? What's the purpose behind the story that you want to tell and the content that you want to bring to life in your video? Who is your audience? This is a big question as far as, you know, who's going to be consuming that content, and that helps you really drive what that video is going to be about and what that message is going to be in your video. So if you're designing a video for farmers or lake groups or elected officials, the general public, that really helps you drive what your key message is going to be. And almost as important as the message is the messenger. So we've probably made about 70 plus videos over the last few years. And I think I can honestly say I've only been in one of them, in front of the camera in one of them. And that's because most of our video content it's designed for farmers. And so farmers want to hear from farmers. They want to hear from agronomists and project partners who've been working on the ground to adopt these practices. So knowing who is that appropriate messenger is really valuable and really helps build a quality product in the end. And then thinking about where you're going to film. So this really helps you think through some of the logistical pieces of what you might need to consider before you get out to that filming location. So like I said, I'm going to use some videos to help kind of illustrate these pieces. So I'm going to first share a video. This was something that we did last fall, a project that happened just south of Green Bay.
Here we're at Marv Bees' farm, standing overlooking his ravine as part of a pasture restoration project that we undertook with the NRCS and then also Brown County Land Conservation.
So I'm the second generation of the farm. We have 3 children, one's in college and 2 boys are in high school. Both seem very interested in continuing on for the 3rd generation.
From the air, it looked like a forested area, but when we got on site, you can see the topographic relief. It was very erosive side slopes and a stream at the bottom.
So I'm going to just backtrack here a little bit. There's something I want to point out. So as you can see in this picture, I'm going to talk about orientation of your camera. And this picture was taken in a vertical orientation. This was a cell phone picture, having the phone vertically versus horizontally. So we're going to talk about that. If there's one thing that you take away from this talk, make sure that when you're out doing video work that you have your cell phone oriented in that landscape horizontal direction. It really helps tell that story and bring to life more of the imagery that you're shooting.
Side slopes and a stream at the bottom. And all the vegetation underneath some of the historic trees is all like buckthorn and other invasive species that made grass growth and soil stabilization not possible.
We went into grazing because we got some fields, smaller fields cut up with the ravines with the creeks going through the watershed. Utilized a ravine that was all woods, mostly brush and more your hickory ash and borax. So we cleaned that out and planted the grass mix in there and wound up seeing some real good benefits along the creek banks from erosion.
One of the really interesting things that we've been able to do with this particular operation of Marv's is all of the land that we put into grazing are really the most sensitive acres. There are steep slopes down to the creek, and we've been able to put those into permanent sod, so we prevented erosion. And basically this grazing operation, while offering an economic impact for Marv, is actually buffering one of the more sensitive creeks that we want to take advantage of. And there's been some question about, are cows good for waterways and creeks? And the answer is, if managed correctly, they're absolutely a benefit. And the reason being is that if you have a grass down there along a waterway and it's up and mature and there's a seed head there, it's not growing anymore, it's not taking nutrients up anymore. And with that higher grass, you don't have quite the number of plants per square foot, so you don't have that dense sod like you would when you have these really thick, actively growing pastures. So by being able to manage it with cattle, you can come in there, you can graze it down, you can utilize it, you can get the benefit from it as a farmer, but you have an actively growing plant that's absorbing nutrients like a sponge, and you've got roots that are stabilizing the bank. So done right, there are some huge environmental benefits from sites like this.
So working with the county and the NRCS on this were pretty instrumental in getting it going. Essentially, we took on this project to keep improving on the land and just try to utilize the resources that are out there and given to us, and hopefully pass that on to the next generation.
All right. So, all right. So the first thing I want to talk about is the equipment that you can use. So that video, for the most part, was all done by cell phone. Obviously, there was a small clip in there that was we used a drone. So if you have access to a drone, if you have any project partners that have the license to fly a drone, by all means use it, because it really does help gather some really cool footage. But these cell phones, what you carry around in your pocket, are really powerful and they really do a good job. So you can do all of this pretty on a pretty low budget. A couple of things that I have found that just to keep in mind when you're working with the cell phone, turn off your notifications. That just, you don't want to be in the middle of an interview or collecting footage and then get a phone call. That can really throw people off. And then also I found, especially on hot summer days, overheating. So that is a reality with our cell phones. That's happened more so when we've used live events, doing like Facebook Live. But I just want to throw that as a tidbit out there just to keep that in mind if you're out in some hot weather. Other equipment that you might want to consider, a wireless microphone, I would almost say is a must-have. It really helps create or collect really quality audio. We did the first couple of years without a microphone, and it's really made a difference to have that piece of equipment. They're relatively cheap, anywhere from like $60 to $80. So if you have that in your budget, I really highly recommend investing in a wireless microphone. When you're searching or we're doing some shopping, just make sure that you read the fine print. Some microphones are compatible with iPhones and not Androids or vice versa. So just making sure that you get one that's going to work with your system. Stabilizers are nice to have. They're not an absolute must, but it does help collect some better video quality. And like I mentioned, access to a drone is great. And then, like I pointed out in that video, having your phone in the horizontal landscape orientation is just an absolute must. You are able to capture so much of the story versus if you do it in the vertical orientation. Yeah, it looks great on your phone, it looks fine, but then when you go to edit, you get those black bars, and so you're really losing some of that story when you go into edit. Okay, so talking about the interview, so this is kind of like, in an ideal situation, best practice is to do the interview first and then collect B-roll second. That B-roll, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is the action shots. So doing an interview first is always the best way to do it. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but if you can do an interview, I like to kind of talk with the interviewee first, kind of prep them with some of the questions that you're going to ask. Because the biggest thing is that you want them to stay on message. Videos really shouldn't be any longer than 3 minutes. People's attention spans just aren't that long. So you want to get to the point, you want to get to the point quickly. Another thing to keep in mind, as you noticed, those interviews, they were just talking to me. I didn't have them, with the exception of Adam. He kind of went up and down, and that's totally fine. People, tend to do that when they're talking, they like to be animated. But what you don't want is for them to start, if it's out in an ag field, start digging while they're talking, because one, it can harm the quality of the audio, can sometimes not be as great unless they're as if they were just talking to you. And so that's one reason. But then when you go to edit, it also can be really challenging if they're moving all around and then you're trying to cut and stuff. So for them, as much as you can, try to just have that interview be a back and forth conversation, and then collect that B-roll afterwards. Another tidbit, have the interviewee respond with the question that you asked. So this is an example. So what's your favorite thing about farming? You would like them to say, my favorite thing about farming is working for myself, and not working for myself. Because if you noticed in the video that I just shared, my voice wasn't in it at all. So when you go to edit, you take out those questions. And so if you go back to edit your video and all you have is working for myself, there's no context behind that, and so it's almost not usable. So always try to get the interview to respond using that question so that you can then edit out yourself. So for videos that are shot outside, which obviously it is nice to be outside whenever possible, you are going to run into some issues. Particularly wind is a big one. Ag fields out on a lake, wherever you might be, dealing with wind can be an issue. So sometimes you have to get creative. We've used vehicles as wind blocks in the past. We've used the tree line. Anywhere you can try to get a little bit of that relief from large winds of gusts, or large gusts of wind. And restart if you get interrupted, so if a big gust comes in and the audio gets mixed up, if you're out in an egg field and a milk truck drives by, just stop. Don't try to compete with those external noises because it's really going to hurt your audio quality. And then prep your interviewee that, if they get tongue-tied, if they don't like the way they're responding, that's okay. This is all going to be edited. And so pauses help when you're editing. So it's really important that they take a pause and restart. So if they're going along and then they say, oh, I don't like how I'm saying this, so I'm going to start over right now, and this is what I'm going to talk about. You don't have any time to really break and cleanly cut that. So pauses. You want that in there to help. It'll make your life easier. And speaking of making your life easier, always check your audio before you leave the site. I have learned the hard way. Sometimes things happen and you think you're recording and you're not, or the audio, the microphone, something's goofy and you're not collecting that audio. And so it's always a lot easier to redo something while you're still out in the field versus trying to reschedule something at a later date. So check the audio before you leave. Okay, so B-roll. Like I said, B-roll is the action shots. That's what you're going to be, that kind of like that entertainment factor. So you want to have B-roll in your video so there's not just someone talking at everyone. So I like to use a combination of still images and video of people doing things. But again, that interview really guides the B-roll. So as you're interviewing someone and you're hearing their responses, try to take note of what they're talking about, because then you want to go use that as a guide to what action shots you want to collect. What is that footage going to really look like? So that when you go to edit, you have things that are relevant to the conversation. So if they're talking about earthworms, are they talking about grazing? Are they talking about cover crops or whatever that might be? You want to kind of take note of what it is so that you can go back and collect that B-roll. More is always better. And this goes for the interview as well as for the B-roll. If you're going to make your life easier, you're going to have a lot more content than you're actually going to be able to fit into that 2 to 3 minute video, and that's okay. But it is always better to have more footage to use and to play around with than to not have enough. And the other tip that I highly recommend is making sure that B-roll footage, so if you're collecting video of people doing things, try to make it at least 20 seconds, because the worst thing is if you have some really cool B-roll footage and it's only 5 seconds long, but they talked about that for 10 to 15 seconds, then you're trying to drag that out when you're going back and editing. So try to keep the clips at least 20 seconds long. And then talking with project partners about collecting this footage throughout the life of the project. So the next video, and actually the first video, you notice that there's going to be B-roll footage that clearly was not on the day that we were doing the interviews and doing a lot of the video prep. And so the fact that those partners had some pictures and they had some video content of weeks or months or years ago from the beginning of the project, it really helped kind of fill out that whole story. And so I highly recommend talking with project partners and just making that a point that if you're going to be using videos as a strategy moving forward, that they're collecting that content along the way, so that when you eventually get to that point where you're going to make your video, you have a lot of B-roll to work with. Okay, so this next video, it's going to shake it up a little bit. This is actually a wild rice project that was happening in Green Bay, and a video that I helped put together last fall. And you're going to notice in this video that there's a lot of use of the B-roll footage.
And we're out at Sensabout Wildlife Area today, one of the units of the Green Bay West Shore Wildlife Area. And we're seeding wild rice today in one of the impoundments. This is a large-scale project where we have priority marshes, coastal wetlands along the west shore of Green Bay, and we're trying to get wild rice reestablished in some of these areas where we've lost it.
So during seeding, what we're doing is we purchase seed from harvesters in both Wisconsin and Minnesota, and we come out in the mid to late fall, preferably before ice starts on all of our sites. And the idea is that the seed has to cold harden in the environment over winter. So we bring the seed out. It's a very simple process. Basically just toss it into the water and let it sink to the bottom. And once it's there, it'll have the opportunity to cold harden throughout the winter, and we'll come back in the spring and early summer and see how well these sites are doing.
Wild rice is a pretty picky plant on where it likes to grow, and so UW Green Bay has been out here looking at finding the perfect spot with the right water levels, the right water quality, and so we find these areas, and depending on the year, we've had some big challenges with the lake levels fluctuating with Lake Michigan. And so some sites where we thought we had the perfect water level have now raised quite a bit, and so they're a little too deep for wild rice, which is why we're in here today at Sensiba. This is a little more of a controlled environment, a lot more sheltered, and we have seen some great success here from the rice seeding last year.
So at UW Green Bay, we hire 1 to 2 students each summer to work on this project. And what they do is they come out with us during the monitoring process throughout the growing season. It's a really great opportunity to get students out on many of our coastal wetlands in the area. Also an opportunity for them to learn about aquatic vegetation, identification. Our students work with us usually throughout the field season, and then often throughout the year on other aspects of the project, such as planning and reporting and other things like that.
This has given me hands-on experience working in the field, knowing that some things are quantifiable and some things are not, that sometimes best laid plans need to be changed midway through. It's done a lot for not only my academic career, but also hopefully work experience in the future.
The wild rice is not only culturally significant in this area, but it's a huge resource for wildlife, and in particular for Ducks Unlimited, we're focused a lot on waterfowl. The seed that's produced is a major food source for waterfowl, but it goes beyond that too and has a lot of water quality benefits and a lot of good for a lot of other critters too. So it's a great all-around project that has a lot of benefits.
It's meant a lot to me being out on the largest freshwater estuary on Earth, trying to restore the habitat.
All right, so as you can see in this video, the use of the B-roll footage from the day that we were out there recording and that they were planting, but that also these partners, they did an awesome job of collecting pictures and video from the beginning of the project and really being able to tell that whole story. And so I know we don't have a lot of time to really dig into how do you edit your videos, but I did want to just provide some background on some of the resources that are out there that are free for editing videos. So for Mac users, iMovies is a great tool. It's actually how I created both of the videos that you saw today. Pretty simple to use. Just, watching tutorials on YouTube has been really helpful getting started. Windows users, you have Microsoft Video Maker available to you. Again, resource or software that is out there that's free and relatively user-friendly. Just take some time to play around with the different tools inside those programs. The music that you heard behind, I like to add music behind the audio of my videos just to kind of give it a little extra flavor. I get that from YouTube Audio Library. There's a ton of free resource or free music out there that you are able to download. Branding your videos. This is something that we do. So both of the videos I showed today were actually developed for a different project, but if it's a Fox Demo Farms project video or a Door-Kewaunee Demo Farms video, I do like to add that branding using that logo to help really push out who the video content is from. And then again, shorter is better. I can't stress that enough. If you put in time to develop a 6-7 minute video. I know it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but people's attention span is just really not that long. And so if you can cut it down to that 2 to 3 minute mark, it really is gonna add value to your video. As far as sharing videos go, I'm going to talk a little bit about our experience with the demo farms. But first, before we talk about that, I do just want to make a point that captioning is really important, making sure that your content is accessible to everyone. But please note that if you are going to be sharing on social media, the auto-generate that platforms like Facebook and YouTube have, they do require editing. They're not accurate. It's a good starting place, but it's definitely good. You need to put a little bit more time into it to make sure that the quality and the content is accurately portrayed. So Facebook, that's where we use, that's where we put our videos or get our videos out predominantly with the demo farms. So I can speak to some of the things that I've learned with Facebook. Uploading your video directly, so uploading that MP4 file directly to Facebook is a lot better than providing than sharing a link to YouTube. So the reason for that is, as you might be familiar, scrolling through Facebook, you see videos that are going to auto start as you're scrolling through. That really helps catch people's attention if it automatically starts. But if you share a YouTube link, you're just going to have a static thumbnail, and people are far less likely to stop and watch your video if it's just a static picture. So I always recommend uploading that MP4 file directly, and then boosting your posts. So using the targeted ads is really helpful. If you're going to go through the effort of putting together a video, I highly recommend boosting it. A little money goes a long way, but really what you're doing is just making sure that it doesn't get buried in people's feeds. So if you post something and don't boost it, the likelihood of people seeing it's just so much far less. And like I said, you know, if you have an extra 10 to 15 bucks to put into your budget for boosting posts, it's definitely worth your money. Twitter, we don't use Twitter a lot, but I do know that there's a stipulation for the length of video to be aware of on Twitter, no longer than 2 minutes and 20 seconds. YouTube, so we do have a YouTube channel for the demo farms. We really see this as kind of our library for our videos. Like I said, most of our sharing happens through Facebook, but this is a good tool if you're going to be communicating through like listservs. So be able to share that link versus just having that large file that can be really hard to share via email. So with that, I think I will open it up. I think we have a few minutes to go through some questions.
We do have a few questions here. Well, you mentioned editing tools that you knew of, but one of our questions here is specifically for switching scenes, adding text, etc. Have you tried different things and found one better than the other?
As far as different software systems, or
yeah.
Like I said, I've just used iMovies. I know that I do have access to Adobe Premiere, but I just haven't played around with that enough. So for me, it's worked out well to just use iMovies as the free software that's available as a Mac user, and you're able to do different transitions in there with various text options.
And then we have, is there any specific wireless mic that you've tried that you'd recommend?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about it. I should have had this, I've got it here next to me. Sorry for the loud noise here, but I can share what we have. So this is a Boya, B-O-Y-A, and feel free, whoever is asking that question, to jot down my email address. I can share the link to this. But yeah, this is it's for cell phones. I know I have an iPhone, so I know it's compatible with iPhones. I'm not sure if it works for Androids, but it's a pretty slick system. I want to say it was in the $60 to $70 range. So pretty affordable, and we've had really good luck with that. So for that person who was wondering about that, feel free to email me and I'd be happy to share the link.
Yeah, I'll probably be emailing you too as we're
Sure.
because I got plans.
Yeah.
When you say stabilizer, do you mean a tripod of some sort, or?
So so tripods definitely are an option. I have I'll pull it up here. So this is what I've used. And it basically, you're able to put your cell phone into the carrier here, and then you download an app and it allows you to control, so you can zoom in and zoom out. And it's a tool that I'm starting to get more comfortable with, but I'll be honest, I just got this last year, so I'm still learning how to use it, because I'm sure I'm not using it to its full potential. It can do a lot of different things. So a tripod definitely is helpful, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of interviews and you want to keep your hands stable. But when I did say stabilizer, it's more of this handheld tool that you're able to put your phone into and then be able to control with these knobs and be able to do some cool things.
Yeah, I know Tony Roman from Extension recommends a Fugue stick. I think it's FUGUE stick. And it's actually a selfie stick, but you can hook it onto a tripod too.
Oh, okay.
It works with Wi-Fi. It has a Wi-Fi connection, so it's pretty cool. Well, we had other questions, but that's all the time we have. But feel free to reach out to Whitney through her email address. It's up on the screen, and it's also available in the speaker section of EventMobi. And thank you so much. I learned stuff, even though I've been taking these little classes when I can. I've always learned something new. And next up, folks, if you want to stick in this stream, we've got the Wisconsin Water Agenda, your chance to give some feedback with Bill Davis and Mike Engelson, and that is starting right now. So hop on over there if you're interested, or on to your next session.
Thank you.
Thank you.